Hey guys, how you doing? It's Tom. Another day, and Tommy Robinson and Julian Assange are still political prisoners of the tyrannical government of the European Union. Oh, sorry, did I say the European Union? I meant the tyrannical government of Britain. Or is it the European Union? They voted for Brexit, right? But, so they left the European Union? No, of course they didn't. Why would their vote matter? Global governance is like the Hotel California. You could check in, but you could never leave. But yeah, another day has gone by. Tommy Robinson, Julian Assange, still political prisoners. But I always say that we have to take advantage of these moments. These are teachable moments, and every act of government tyranny in its own way is a gift to the future of liberty. I mean, take Julian Assange, for example. Julian Assange is the CEO of WikiLeaks, and all they do is they get sent classified documents, and they release those documents, and these documents show the crimes of politicians and governments all over the world in their own words, hands caught in the cookie jar, got them dead to right. And the response to WikiLeaks spreading truth is Julian Assange becomes the most wanted man in the world. Governments all over the world want Assange dead. And if the greatest truth teller in the world is the most wanted man in the world, then the world by its very nature is run by criminals. It also teaches us about the mainstream media, because governments don't want to arrest the CEO of CNN. They don't want to arrest the CEO of Fox News. They don't want to arrest the CEO of MSNBC. Because these news organizations aren't spreading truth the way WikiLeaks is spreading truth. They work lockstep, hand in hand with government. And that becomes very clear through the tyrannical actions against WikiLeaks by governments all over the world, especially the government of the European Union. I mean Britain, sorry, I keep doing that. But just look, each action is a gift. Look at Lauren Southern, speaking of Britain, right? Lauren Southern was arrested trying to enter the United Kingdom. Now, her detainment is bad enough on its own, but there's a bigger story there. Lauren Southern was actually held under the 2000 or the 2001 Terrorism Act, enacted in the United Kingdom. And that was allegedly to combat radical terrorism. We're talking about people trying to blow up buildings, fly planes into buildings, that type of thing. Well, Lauren Southern was held under the Terrorism Act, and the officer that detained her said to her, dead to right, she said, "You know I'm not a terrorist, right?" And he said, "Yes, we know you're not a terrorist." Yet she was held under that act. And there is a recording of that. There is a recording of that between the arresting officer and Lauren Southern's father. So you see how government makes laws and then expands them to become abusive, which is why we can't give government that type of power in the first place, right? Lauren Southern wasn't granted rights to a lawyer, a solicitor, because she was held under this terrorist act. And then, of course, we have the arrest of Tommy Robinson, who was reporting on the pedophile scandal that the government in Britain and the mainstream media in Britain had covered up for many, many years. But Tommy Robinson reports on this. They say that this is hate speech. They say that he's causing public unrest. Well, Tommy Robinson wasn't causing public unrest. The pedophile networks that the government of Britain have imported into the country cause unrest. Tommy Robinson was just reporting on an uncomfortable truth that the government didn't want reported on, so because of that, he goes to prison. And it shows how dangerous it is to give government authority, to expand government authority. Just like Brexit shows how dangerous it is to give away your national sovereignty. Because the only reason these pedophile networks have been... Sorry, problem with the lighting. The only reason these pedophile networks have been able to take shape in Britain is because the European Union, their immigration policy, and the erosion of British sovereignty so that these pedophile networks could take control of the country. So Tommy Robinson reports on that, and he gets arrested. And as a response, the judge in the case issues a ruling that anyone in the country of Britain who reports on Tommy Robinson's arrest, anyone who reports on his arrest, can themselves be arrested. So you're not allowed to spread information that Tommy Robinson has been arrested because the government of Britain doesn't want people to know this. Because if people know this, they might protest, they might go knock down the doors of the prison and demand Tommy Robinson be released. It also might draw attention to the big pedophile scandal. 90% of the pedophiles involved are of Muslim descent. The government's trying to bring in as many people from the Islamic world as possible. This is a big hit to their agenda. They don't want public awareness about this. So the judge issues a stay, and no one in the country is allowed to report on Tommy Robinson's arrest. And I was going through Twitter this morning, and someone in the UK issued a tweet, I forgot who it was, that said, "Thank you to all my brothers in Australia, in Canada, in the United States for reporting and talking about what we're not allowed to say, what we dare not say. Because if they say it, if he talks about Tommy Robinson, can't even say his name, he'll be arrested." And again, this works as another teachable moment, another gift of tyranny. I'd like to thank you, tyranny. Because we are told by the global liberal establishment, the New World Order, that nationalism is bad and that we need to accept global government. We need to accept the European Union, the American Union, which they tried to create, and eventually one world government. The joys of a world united. No more war. Well, who needs war when you have absolutely no freedom? Because if there was a global government, then when the judge issued that stay, anyone in the world who reported on Tommy Robinson's arrest would have been themselves subjected to arrest under the tyrannical arm of government. And how many people would even know Tommy Robinson was arrested at this point? Because people in the United States, people in Canada, people in Australia wouldn't be able to talk about it. We would all be subject to the tyrannical arm of global government. I mean, take global government and shove it up your ass. Look at the country of India. They have now got rid of all cash. I'm not sure if they went back to it, but at one point they did. And in order to make transactions, you have to do an eye scan and a fingerprint scan. Well, when you give the government that type of power, anyone who goes against the government, say Tommy Robinson, say myself, if the government doesn't like what they're doing, there's no cash, you need to do an eye scan in order to spend money, they could just freeze your account and you have absolutely no cash. You have absolutely no living. Say someone like me, someone like Tommy Robinson, they would absolutely, these people don't exist in China. And the reason they don't exist is because if they do, they'll be arrested and possibly killed by the Chinese government. Well, in China, they have the largest, most expansive spy state in the world. And there are biometric cameras everywhere throughout the country. If you are wanted by the government of China, if I were a Chinese citizen and badmouth the government, you walk outside and I want you to YouTube this. Type in reporter test Chinese surveillance system. You walk outside within 2 minutes, if you're wanted by the government, no matter where you go, you will be arrested, you will not get a trial, and you will never be heard from again. Well, imagine this was world government. Imagine there were no other people in the world who had sovereignty, who had more liberty than somewhere else, who could report on this tyranny. Well, we wouldn't have freedom of speech. We certainly wouldn't have the right to bear arms. We wouldn't have freedom of the press, as we could see in the UK. We wouldn't have financial freedom, as you could see in India. And we would be under the complete control of a mass surveillance grid, as we could see in China. Global government's not looking too good. Yet the elites of this world tell us that nationalism is bad. Well, I agree with them. Nationalism is bad. So the first thing we're going to do, because they're not going to stop us, the first thing we're going to do is we are going to restore nationalism all over the world. We're going to restore nationalism in the United States, as Donald Trump is doing. We're going to restore nationalism in Canada. We're going to restore nationalism in the United Kingdom. Brexit will take place because we will fight for it. We're going to restore nationalism in France and Italy and all over the world. And then any country that embraces individual liberty, well, that's great. We will be a global community through voluntarism, not through tyranny. We will agree through voluntarism to work with one another. All free states in the world can work together without having global government. And all those free states will be prosperous, because the more free a nation is, the more prosperous they are. It's why the capitalist country of the United States has a great deal of wealth, that poverty in the United States means having a car, having a cell phone, having a meal to eat. But in tyrannical North Korea, people have nothing to eat. They have no freedom, they have nothing to eat. People in China, the country of China has money, but the people starve. That's the difference between freedom and tyranny being global government, freedom being smaller government. So, you're right, I do think nationalism is bad, because once we restore nationalism, well, we get out of the arm of global government, then we can move government to the state level where it should be, right? Because nationalism, government's just too big. I mean, just look at what Edward Snowden revealed, that the NSA is spying on every American citizen. What are you doing spying on us? The American citizens don't work for you. You work for us. Get that shit out of here. No way. But for now, we'll restore national government. And then, once we do that, we will push the power of government back to the states. Because when there's state government, just like when there's different countries in the world and not one world order, there's more choice. You could, if you don't like the tyranny of one state, you could go to another state. Which means there's more freedom. And you're not voting against 355 million people, you're voting against a couple million people. So your vote has more say. And your input has more say. You could sway the opinions of people on your state on certain issues. I mean, just look at the marijuana issues, how in certain states, people have had grassroots movements to push for referendums to legalize marijuana. That's the difference between national government and state government. And then once we get state government implemented, well, my God, we could push government back to the local level. And if you push government to the local level, all of a sudden you'll see government that's very efficient, because now you have government that, instead of having to answer to a couple of million people, might have to answer to 100,000 people. Shit, in some counties around the country, local government has to answer to 10,000 people, 5,000 people. All of a sudden, the voice of the people has a lot of power. We need to make government smaller, not make government bigger. The New World Order, one world government, the European Union, the Amero, this is tyranny. Nationalism, it's better, but it's still tyranny. But it's much better because you restore your sovereignty. State government's better because you have more say. And local government, well, you have a shitload of say. The people of this world are leading a movement. We are taking our freedom back. We are taking our countries back. We are taking our world back through sovereignty. And we are taking our liberty back. If Tommy Robinson's family is watching this video, his wife, his young child, I want you to rest easy. Tommy Robinson wrote a book titled The Enemy of the State. Well, I want you to know that the enemy of the state has lots of fucking allies.